the rest of us would have all this land to ourselves, a very small population, and we'd have all the food we need, and not these masses to worry about.
They want to go back. They want to go back to nature and back to neo-feudalism, hence neo-feudalism, and just to back you up, this all goes back to Malthus in the 1750s. Then you have Galton and others coming out with these very same plans, and that's how. And of course, the elites of the planet, the royalty, love this. This makes perfect sense to them. But you even have these subgroups overthrowing royalty, trying to go to a 10-day work week. They were trying to overthrow the entire previous order and literally play God.
Right, exactly. And they wrote about it openly back then. Now it's more disguised. They changed the language so most people wouldn't really recognize what they were talking about. If you get some of these pamphlets and material from the Social Science Research Council, if you don't know the code words, if you don't know what they're talking about, like sustainability, if you don't understand what that means, it sounds very benign. It sounds very philanthropic, a good thing to do. But if you understand the code words, what they're planning, you realize it's absolute control. It is planning means an elite controls your life. And to put it on a scale that people can understand, all this new move toward eminent domain, where they come in and take a man's business and say, well, for the public good, if we tear down his business and build a high-rise there or shopping center, we'll have a bigger tax base. And so they use eminent domain to take his property. Well, that's central planning. That's social planning.
And their total rationale
that man doesn't matter.
And their total rationale is social Darwinism. They believe that it's not horrible to kill people or enslave them or inject them with cancer viruses in the vaccines. It is good because they have the right of kings to do whatever they want because they're in the elite position. That is prima facie evidence of their genetic superiority.
That's exactly right, and this is exactly what Dr. Kay says in her history book of molecular biology, that was always their thought. That we're the elite, we're the best genes, and therefore we should do human engineering, the new science of man, so we reduce population to those of us who, number one, have the elite minds, the pure genetics, and then we'll keep a small core of people to do the menial tasks that we don't want to do. And they even wrote about keep these people uneducated because there's no need to educate them. They're going to be doing menial tasks. And, it's interesting reading these things because they were so open about it. And there's quite a few books on social control that are written in the 20s and 30s that openly talk about these.
Edward Bernays and others. Stay there, Dr. Blaylock. Quick break. We're going to come right back to you. This is just so important, and we're so honored to have you here. Folks, I can't think of a more important subject. I hope you're telling your friends and family to tune into this live show and the rebroadcast. This is key. Imagine, folks, Dr. Blaylock, myself, so many other researchers, we know this information. I own close to 50 or so original source government textbooks and foundation textbooks where they say they're going to exterminate us. The United Nations Biological Diversity Assessment in 96, in 89. This is all public. It's just not widely known. This is true. This is real what we're talking about. They want us dead. And they are spraying us, the GMO. There's hundreds of different types of plastics they can make inexpensively. They chose the one formula that releases these toxins, these endocrine disruptors that manipulate our hormone levels. Why did they choose that one type for universal adoption worldwide and sell the factory formulas and machines and systems, sometimes at a loss, to make sure that was implemented in the 50s? Then we see the sperm counts drop. We see the fertility problems. Why do they approve the bovine growth hormone to put in the milk when they know it is linked to cancer and all these problems? Why do they put mercury in vaccines? We've gotten up to the point of their master plan, Dr. Blaylock. This is a short segment. I want to come back in the next long segment and take some calls from Jen and Sherry and Robert and Brad and Dr. Tracy and others that are holding. But any other, there's so many. We talk for 10 hours. I'm going to definitely have you back if you'll grace us with your time to warn people. What do we do about this? We're here trying to warn folks. This is real. This affects everybody. except for a few thousand elitists who even write about how they know they're being hurt by the blowback, but it's okay for the greater work they're doing. I mean, how do we counter this?
Well, it's very difficult because, like I say, they have the entire wealth of the world at their disposal. They essentially control all the media. I mean, back in 1950s, a guy by the name of Manuel Josephson, who was Josephson, who was a medical doctor. He wrote a book on Rockefeller that's quite detailed, very well documented. And he talks about these things in that book as well, how Rockefeller was absolutely obsessed with controlling all information that's available to the public. And the way he did it, even back then, he was spending something like $250 million controlling the media. And by being the major controlling force in literally hundreds, if not thousands, of corporations, all of which advertised in the major media, by 1950s, all the major media was dependent on their advertising dollar. So anything he wanted in the media and anything he didn't want in the media, all he had to do is let them know, well, you would lose your funding if that's discussed.
And a lot of other mainstream media was owned by allies like William Randolph Hearst. Doctor, let's take this tack for a moment and then continue with any other points you had on that first question. There are elitists and wannabe elitists, a lot of these minion professors. And I use the local Austin example of Dr. Eric Pianka. He gives speeches, it's been in the news, where he says we need to kill 90% of the public. And the point is, they get 95% standing ovations. He PowerPoints a huge thing of skulls with a red filter on the wall. This has been on national news. And everybody claps, and the scientists cry. And he goes and speaks to the Royal Academy in England and to the big, Royal Academies and the most prestigious academies in France. I know you've written papers and spoken to some of those big groups as well, but the point is, and the majority of them start crying. This has been in the newspaper because this is their religion. What do you want to say to those people listening? I mean, what would be your counter and your argument to them? I mean, reaching out to them and going, my God, look what you've done. I mean, trying to get them to come over to our side of humanity.
Well, this is the collectivist idea, and we're steeped in collectivism. This was the whole program of virtually every president since the Civil War, is the gradual implementation of collectivism in the United States. And collectivism basically says the individual doesn't matter. What matters is the community. Well, community doesn't really mean a lot. If you listen to communist jargon, they say the people. We speak for the people. Well, this mythological people is nobody. It's whoever's in charge, whoever owns the gun. And so the government owns all the power, and so they speak for the people, they speak for the public. So when you hear them saying, this is for the good of the public, or this is good for the...
And then in reality, the eugenicists, the communists, they always kill the people because they hate the people.
Well, they fear the people. Historically, if you look at every dictatorship, what eventually happens is they come to fear the people because they know that what they're doing is unpopular and not working, and then they fear revolution.
Yes.
And this is what happens with collectivism in the United States, is it becomes more and more collective. People recognize the elitist is now what's causing my financial failure, or the leaders are what's causing, whatever bad is happening.
The parasite. Stay there, doctor. Stay there. We got a break. We'll be right back after this quick break with Dr. Russell.